Welcome to Psalm 15. The unblemished shall dwell with the Lord. It begins in the title, Psalmos to David, a psalm attributed to David. Kyrie, O Lord, tis parikisi en to skinomatisu, etis kataskinosi in ori agiosu, prevomenos amomos ke ergazomenos dikaiosinin, lalon alethion in cardia of two. Who shall sojourn in your tent, or who shall encamp in your holy mountain? The tent, your holy, God has a tent. It's interesting. The tabernacle is another word for a tent. The tabernacle was designed by God and was built at Mount Sinai with the instructions given to Moses. But in the New Testament, we find out a little bit more about this tent that was on earth was a copy of another tent. And in Revelation 13:6, it mentions, and he opened his mouth for blasphemy against God, the beast, that is, to blaspheme his name and his tent, and the ones encamping in the heaven. Now, whether it's actual tent or this is a figure for some place where God sojourns or dwells, as it says right here, then the ones in heaven encamping. So an encamping is generally with a tent and that moves around. Or who shall encamp in your holy mountain? There's the encamping again. Then in Revelation 15:5 it says, and after these things I saw, and the temple of the tent of the testimony was opened in the heaven. Now a temple and a tent are two really different things. A temple is generally a structure, a hard structure, where a tent is a structure that you can fold and take apart. And yet, both of these are mentioned in Revelation 15:5. It's in heaven. I suppose we'll have to wait until we get to heaven to find out exactly what that's all about. And then in Revelation 21:3, it says, and I heard a great voice from out of the heavens saying, behold, the skene, the tent of God is with men, and he shall pitch a tent with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them. So, O Lord, who shall sojourn in your tent? Good question. And I guess we look at this question personally. Will I be encamped in this tent, being with God? Who will be with him? What are the conditions that are necessary to be with God? Now we see in verse 2 the conditions, even the one going, amomos, unblemished. Now, unblemished, number 299. In Hebrews 9:14, it says, how much more the blood of the Christ, who through eternal Spirit offered himself unblemished to God, shall cleanse your conscience from dead works for the living God. I have blemishes, and you have blemishes. If we have to be unblemished, we're in big trouble, because we are not unblemished. The Old Testament people, they offered sacrifices and through the priesthood to bringing unblemished animals. Even though they were blemished, they brought these unblemished animals, sacrificed them to God. But Jesus, it says, offered himself unblemished to God. So there we see at the beginning that even though we are blemished, Jesus wasn't. The next thing, in working righteousness. And in 2 Corinthians 9:9 it says, as it has been written, he dispersed, he gave to the needy. His righteousness abides into the eon. And it's talking about Jesus and quoting the Old Testament. His righteousness abides into the eon. Working righteousness. Well, we work some righteousness, but not all the time. We do evil. But Jesus didn't sin. He was completely righteous. Next, truth in his heart. And we see in Matthew 12:32, it says, "And the scribe said to him," to Jesus, "Well, teacher, in truth you spoke, that there is one God, and there is not another besides him." You spoke the truth. And Jesus says that he was the truth to Pontius Pilate, who replied, "What is truth?" Speaking truth in his heart. We don't always speak truth in our heart. We say a lot of things that aren't true, I'm sure. Who did not speak treacherously with his tongue. It says in Luke 1:64, "And his mouth was open," a man who couldn't talk, "immediately, and his tongue, and he spoke blessing God." So God allowed this man's tongue to speak blessing God, even though it doesn't mention Jesus, but through Jesus, this occurred. And he did not do bad to his neighbor. I think about Jesus in the Luke chapter 10, where he talks about the Good Samaritan, when the young man asked what he needed to do to be delivered. And Jesus said to bless your neighbor. And he said, "Who is my neighbor?" And Jesus told him the story about the man who was on a trip and was grabbed by robbers, beaten up, laying on the side of the road. And the Pharisee came by, and a scribe and a priest came by and went on the other side away from him. But then a Samaritan, who was considered not a Jew, somebody that had been brought in from Mesopotamia by Nebuchadnezzar, this Samaritan saw the man, and he picked him up, cleaned him off, put oil and wine on his wounds, and put him on his horse, and took him to the nearest tavern, place to stay for the night, and paid for his staying there and being taken care of. And this was the neighbor. And Jesus, here it says, "and did not do bad to his neighbor." Well, that's not always easy, because you're going to have neighbors that are going to make it very difficult for you to do the good thing and the righteous thing. And I have one neighbor who's very difficult. She doesn't like me. And for years, 30 years I've lived here, and I've tried to get along the best I can, and she just doesn't want to go that direction. But other people, we can have neighbors and do them harm or think bad about them, but yet that's not the condition for being in the tent and the mountain of God. And I forgot to mention where it says that in the first chapter, the mountain of God. We had the first mountain that was mentioned was Mount Sinai, where Moses went up, and then the tent was developed, and then the tent. Then the next mount, the main mount that's mentioned, Mount Zion, which is Jerusalem. And then in Ezekiel, the last 10 chapters, it talks about a high mountain, which I believe is Mount Meron. And these would be the mountains, and Mount Meron, I believe, is going to that temple is going to be after the 1,000 years, or during the 1,000 years. I'm not exactly sure, but that's the other mountain. And then the last thing was and did not take up scorning against the ones near him. That would be relatives or friends. And I remembered and saw this, and I thought about it, and it says, and it was near the holiday of the Jews, the one of pitching tents, which is interesting, the tents. Then his brothers said to him, and they had names, they were real brothers, oh, cross over from here and go into Judea, that also your disciples should view your works which you do. So, for no one does anything in secret, and he himself seeks to be in an open manner. If these things you do, manifest yourself to the world, for neither his brothers believed in him. Now, did he revile him and say, you're a bunch of idiots? Why do I have you in the same family as me? Get away from me, and reviling them? Then Jesus says to them, no, my time is not yet at hand, but your time at all times is ready. The world is not able to detest you, but me it detests. For I testify concerning it, that its works are evil. So he didn't revile against them. You ascend into this holiday feast, and I not yet ascend into this holiday feast, for my time has not yet been fulfilled. And then it continues in 4. So all these things, and I'm sure we revile, scorning against our brothers or sisters, our ones near us, if they ridicule us and so forth, can have bad relations with our relatives. So we can't be perfect in any of these things. So how are we able to be in the tent and the mountain, the holy mountain? Through Jesus Christ, because he has fulfilled all these things. The people here that were reading David would probably go, well, that leaves me out of everything. How can I do all these things? But it's a portent of Jesus, I believe. And it continues then in 4, the one acting wickedly is treated with contempt before him, and that I believe is him as God. The one is treated with contempt. God has contempt towards these ones that are acting wickedly. He's not pleased with it. We may have all been in that position where we weren't walking with God, and he had contempt for us. But yet, having contempt for somebody doesn't mean you're completely lost. The heart open to repentance is always open to God's forgiveness. But the one fearing the Lord, Kyrion, he glorifies. So if we fear God, then the Lord glorifies us, the ones that fear him, through Jesus Christ. Glorifying God would be acknowledging Jesus Christ, his Son, as his Son and the deliverer of the world. Even the one swearing by an oath to his neighbor and not annulling it. So God looks favorably upon ones that swear by something to a neighbor, said they'll do something and make an oath, and does it. God looks upon that with consideration of our actions, and loves our glorifies us, and because we do these things. And then his money he did not give for interest, and that was a no-no, especially mainly to the Jews lending to other Jews. They were not to charge interest, and bribes from the innocent he did not take. There would be a judge or somebody taking bribes. Basically, a bribe from the innocent he did not take. Now, generally the bribe would be from the guilty. So I'm not exactly sure how that works out. Gifts from the innocent he did not take. To change it, basically, it would be to change a verdict and judgment. The one doing these things shall not be shaken into the eon. doing the things that please God, and we will be glorified. Excuse me. Psalm 16, our next video seminar, The Lord is My Portion. We will find out more about that in the next video. I hope you'll join us. And until then, God bless.